Yeah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Rohaya. I'm the moderator for today's sessions. So on behalf of ICOMOS Malaysia, I warmly welcome you to our Heritage Around Us, Sembrani 2.0, our monthly sharing sessions. Okay, today's our theme is heritage, cities and water, a topic that is especially timely as we rethink how climate, culture, and also urban life intersect. So our sessions today features two distinguished speakers, which is town planner Ishaq Arifin and also town planner Afzal Azhari. So for the sessions, each of the panels will be given 20 minutes to share their experience regards to their area of interest. And then after that, we will open the session for Q&A. So let us begin with our first speakers, town planner Isha Arifin, who will talk about reimagining the garden city flowing with nature and water. So town planner, I will introduce town planner Isha Arifin is actually a chartered town planner, consultant and also trainer in conservation planning, environmental management and impact assessment. He was trained in town planning at Cardiff Universities in Wales, UK. He is a member of Royal Town Planning Institute, UK, registered town planner with Malaysian Town Planning Board, a registered heritage conservator and also registered SIA consultant in Malaysia. He is also currently co-chair of Heritage Conservation Committee of Malaysian Institute of Planner and an elite fellow at University Malaya. To date, town planner Isha Arifin have been involved in more than 30 structure plans and local plan studies prepared under the town and regional planning. He also involved in preparing the integrated shoreline management plan, integrated river basin management plan, and Perley State management plan. And actually, town planner Isha Arifin have a very vast experience, and today he will talk about the reimagining the city flowing with nature and water. He will explore how the garden city visions can be rethought for biodiversity and resilience. So we would like to welcome town planner Isha. So the floor is yours. Encik Ishak dah boleh.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much for the long introduction. Maybe I had to edit it a bit. Okay. Let me share my slides first. Okay. All right. So is it visible now?
Not yet. Encik Ishak.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, now can.
It's okay now? Okay.
But Ishak kena letak dekat yang slides because now we can see your PowerPoint. Dekat
Okay.
button. Okay, right now. Okay, now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I think basically what I'm going to talk about is, the garden city concept and how we can update the original concept of garden city introduced by Ebenezer Howard in the 19th century at the turn of the 1900s, around that. Okay. So today basically we'll go through urban city concept and then what's our challenge for the 21st century, and how we can update it, and some design strategies for the new garden city, the updated garden city, which is I'm going to focus a lot more on the rewilding urban spaces because some of the concepts that I'm going to talk about is very much been commonly talked about by other people, that rewilding urban spaces is something that, we have not given really real attention of. Okay. So we will summarize with all the benefits. So the garden city concept, garden city, okay. Introduced by Evan Howard, okay. In And then I think at that time the challenge was the Industrial Revolution come up. The Industrial Revolution, in the 19th century has created a lot of problems in terms of pollution, congestion in cities, urban and poor living conditions. So what Ebenezer Howard did, is to come up with his vision of, how to create a city which is more livable for everyone. So, but while it works then, but now, we might have to relook at, the other things that we face today, especially pressure from climate change, biodiversity loss, problem with urban heat islands, which also leads to flooding in urban areas and all that. Okay. So this is the original, the famous diagram, the tree magnet diagram, on the basis of Howard's concept of garden city. And he had this vision of having a garden city with a rural belt, combining the town and country so that we can have a self-contained community surrounded by green belts. And we have a balance of the amenities, between the two. And okay. And also, we can combine the best of the town and cities. And we have our own, very own garden city township, in Malaysia, which is in Kuala Lumpur Baru. It was designed in 1925 by Charles Reed. And Charles Reed was the first government, a British colonial government town planner. And he was a strong supporter of garden city movement. So a lot of the design that he did, while he was working here was based on the concept of garden city. And so you can see clearly from Kuala Lumpur's layout, the elements of the garden city, that is prepared by Charles Reed. So Charles Reed was also involved in designing the Colonial Lakes Garden in Adelaide, after he left the British Malaya. So he went to Australia, and so he still continued his garden city. We call it the push for garden city movement. Okay, so you can see the Kuala Lumpur now. This is aerial view of Kuala Lumpur, which still retains a lot of the garden city features. And on the right, you see this Letchworth Garden City in the UK. It's the first garden city that was built, when Howard's, published his garden city concept. Okay, so the problem with that we face now, the traditional urban design, okay. So with the garden city concept, now we have problem with a lot of rapid urbanization, urban heat island, and then all the issues related to water, because we have a lot of impermeable surface, in our towns and cities, and which also leads to flooding. And then we also have problem with water scarcity. So modern city face, all these issues, and because there was a disconnection between people and nature when we design our cities, and we cannot, treat greenery as an afterthought, because you see the way we built our city is to actually remove all the vegetation. We denuded the site and then flatten it, and then we started building, which is not a very good way of building a city. So the other challenges, of the traditional approach is this disconnection from nature. We created a lot of green spaces, but um, most of the green spaces, our parks, especially, are isolated and they're not connected. So in terms, the habitat, the natural habitat has been fragmented, And then we also had problem with pollutions, and it all leads to biodiversity loss. Okay. So these are the things that we face today with, our cities. What are some strategies that, we should put in to design garden cities, in the 21st century? Basically, we want to have a city, we call it, that can regenerate itself. We need to design cities which can regenerate its environment. It's not just to preserve it, but uh, it the city will have to work with the natural system, not against it. Yeah. So we need to integrate in the natural ecosystem. We need to let the landscape guide the urban design. And the two of the core principles that have been, um, uh, always brought up is, one is to design the city, flowing with nature, and then to also work with nature. Basically, what they're saying is to have nature-based solution. So I've heard a lot of talks about this, but a lot of people just talk about the concept. When it comes to putting it on the ground, making it a reality, you find that a lot of it doesn't work. Okay, this the water as a design principle is a lot easier to implement because we talk about blue-green infrastructure that we can add, and then we have people promoting the sponge city concept, basically the city should be able to absorb, store, and purify rainwater instead of letting it just flow out to the sea. So these are physical measures that we can take, and then some of the tools technique is having pavement or sidewalk that can absorb water instead of having uh, pavement made from uh, reinforced concrete. We should have this from blocks, water that seeps into the ground. Then we have green roofs, and this has been, we have seen a lot of these solutions, how to create green roof. Then we have the concept of rain garden and bioswales, where you let the drain absorb water to the ground, and water will then be stored temporarily in some tanks. So this will reduce stormwater runoff and so on. And we also have people who promote constructed wetlands, for treating mainly wastewater and then to create habitats. Like you see the lakes in Putrajaya is one of these, one of the examples of constructed wetland. So those are the easier one because but when it comes to working with nature, when you're talking about nature-based solutions, it's not just about parks. You need to create, a network of parks which are connected to create an effectively a bigger green area, so that then, this connecting corridors are usually for allowing wildlife to move between the areas so that they have a much bigger area, to just use, and also, for them to find food and all that. We can, compare that to isolated, fragmented areas where the parks, or the green areas can only support a very small number of wildlife. And then if you have disconnected green areas, then you can allow, the wildlife to return, okay. And waterways can also be should also be made part of the future, and we should start to remove all the rivers that we have covered. We have a good example in JB where they have uncovered Sungai Saget, and then we find that the riverine environment improve, you know. And another thing that's new, some people are suggesting instead of just urban forest, we can create urban food forest, you know, edible landscape, which is, I think we can use that, translate that into the community gardens that have been coming up, you know, all over the cities late in the recent years. Okay, I shall skip the examples. You know, maybe we just go to, you know, rewilding the urban space. You know, so when we talk about nature-based solution, it's not just about green space. It's not enough. We need to get all the simple concept. You know, we need to, first is we need to target, okay, what animals or wildlife that we want to have around, just small mammals and birds, you know, to be in our habitat. So we to enable these animals to be attracted to these areas and also to thrive, you need to create diversity. So diversity, you know, in terms of parklands design, you need to have three different tree densities, clustering. You need to have ground cover, low vegetation, species diversity, structural complexity of the green area. You need the water body, you know, and then you need to create defensible territory for the wildlife because if they don't like open area, and you need to also enable this planting to provide a variety of food sources, and then it creates different niches for different species to occupy. And even dead branches, you know, is useful because they are used for especially birds, you know, to perch, you know, and then to wait for the prey. And you also need to ensure that you have enough nesting materials to encourage birds to occupy the area. So some of the principles, so this is showing how we can create different tree density, have ground cover, low vegetation, and you have, you know, the grass area, you know, you can have a manicured lawn, and then you also need to have long grass area. So these are all different habitats and different niche, you know, that support different species. You know, then you need plant diversity, then you need the structural diversity, different height of the vegetation from, you know, the shrubs and bushes, the ground cover, medium-sized trees, and then tall emerging trees. And then all these, you also need to create connecting corridors with this structurally diverse planting. Okay. Then we need to create spaces which is defensible to the wildlife. You know, they don't like, you know, when trees are spaced out, you know, it doesn't create good refuge area for them, you know, to hide. You know, so and you also need to create sloping vegetated banks for our river or lakes because the wildlife can use that for them to, you know, to drink. You know, if they cannot get to the water, then the habitat will not be attractive. So here we're putting all these concepts together. We have a hypothetical park layout. But if you compare to, this is one of the design for a landscape design for one of the local plants that I picked up. You see they plant trees, you know, they intersperse, you know, and then you have very open area. There's no clustering, there's no refuge area, and there's no clear, you know, corridor for their, you know, wildlife to move. So these are not really good. These are good for greening, but it doesn't even provide proper shade, you know, because the shade tree should be where people are going to sit, so that, you know, you can have some protection from the sun because our country is very hot. So basically, this is just to give an idea. And this is the ideal, say, the park area where you have very dense planting, some parts, you have area where people can walk, the open area for people to use, and you have water body and with the sloping banks instead of having vertical concrete banks, you know, and with that kind or with this kind of design, then we can have wildlife coming back to our green area. And once you connect all these parklands together, then you create an effectively bigger green area because they can move between spaces, between the green spaces, and also you can connect these areas all the way out to the maybe the forest area outside the city. So that will ensure that we have a very good habitat to actually support wildlife. That will be what we want to have as a nature-based solution for the city. Okay, so some of the benefits. Basically, we can see the social benefits from having very well designed, parklands, and that means an improved garden city design. When you have beautiful public spaces, it improve well-being, stronger community bonds, and then encourage people to go out. It's also the environmental benefits. We have enhanced biodiversity in the city itself. We have cleaner air, we have water, cooler temperatures, and also, the other benefits, that are associated with a good environment. We also have economic, benefits from increased property values because the environment is nicer, and it might also encourage tourism, reduce infrastructure costs for flood protection, for example, for protection against, microclimate, and so on. And then our cities become more beautiful, become more unique, and become more livable. But the last point is important because I think in terms of heritage, it creates a resilient cities and it helps protect, especially the city from potential climate-related disasters, especially flash flooding, which is one of the main challenges in disaster risk management, for heritage area. Okay, so lastly, I just want to show our beautiful, this is Kuala Kubu Baru, one of the we call it heritage city, especially because it was built based on the garden city concept, and it is the only one, I think, in Southeast Asia, and it's still intact, and it has a lot of features also that requires and qualifies it as a cultural heritage. And when you see the layout diagram on the left, Kuala Kubu still retain much of the design that was originally prepared by Charles Reed. So this is, you see the left side, the Charles Reed design, and the right side is the layout now. So a lot of it is still there, and we can enhance this by improving in the garden city design by adding the connectivity and the flowing water to Kuala Kubu Baru. So I think that should be enough for today because I would like to go more into more detail, but I think that should be enough. Okay, thank you very much. But you can contact me if you need more information. Okay, thank you.
Right. Okay, thank
Can I
you,
stop sharing? Okay.
Ishaq, for the insightful presentations. Now, we will have our second speaker, Tamplana Afzal Azhari, a registered Tamplana under Malaysian's Board of Tamplanas. Presently, he is one of the board members of the ICOMOS Malaysia, and he is also the chairman for the Selangor Local Community Host Association. And he also served as an expert member of ICOMOS Scientific Committee of Water and Heritage since early 2024. So for the past 17 years, he has been involved in various skills and types of projects ranging from township development, socio-economic studies, culture heritage conservation plan, disaster risk management in tourism planning, and many more. His keen interest is in exploring and understanding the unique human behavior towards its context, both natural and built environment, as impeding impact on people's livelihood. So today, Tamplana Afzal will talk about water hazard and heritage, planning for climate migration in urban environments. Look at the lessons from Angkor, Sabah, and other and our own heritage cities, Malacca and Georgetown, in facing water hazard. So now, the floor is yours, town planner Afza.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon. You have to switch off your. All right. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, very good afternoon. I think I'm continuing from my mentor just now, Town Planner Ishak Arifin. So he mentioned about what is the best option we want to do about what is happening now in Kuala Lumpur Baru, and this is actually like I would say like almost like a prelude of what TPS Ishak was mentioning, which is what we call as the water hazard and heritage, planning for climate migration in urban environment. When we talk about water in the context of human civilization, we cannot run away that water is part of us. 70% of our body is as well is water based, isn't it? So you cannot run away from the fact that water plays a major role in any civilization in the world. And when we talk about the context of the world, I will always love to make to pin down or focus ourselves to the Southeast Asian part. Why I keep on mentioning about Southeast Asian? Coincidentally, this year is Malaysia is the chairperson for the whole of ASEAN, and in the context of ASEAN, within the context of the global world, we are very one of the most expanding urbanization rate in the world. In comparing that, we are also sandwiched by two of the biggest power in the world in the form of China and also India. And you can see from the size of our region, it's not that big, 4.5 million kilometers squared. It's not that big as well. But the population, that is something which is, we have to look at very closely. It's 675 million or maybe 680 million now, and it's still growing. It's not stopping there at 675 million. So I assume in the next maybe less than 10 years, we can reach 1 billion. I mean, it's very realistic in that sense of within our context. Our GDP is 3.18 trillion within the for the past in 2021. But I believe we must improve more after the COVID especially. But again, we look into the heritage perspective. You can see the comparison there. And this is as recent as 2025. The ASEAN overall heritage site is only 47, which is 32 is a cultural site, 14 is a nature site, and only 1 is a mixed site. In comparison to China, they themselves have 59 sites. India alone have 43 sites, and Italy, a smaller nation, have 60 sites. But again, this is not something that we need to be afraid of, or we have to be very concerned whatsoever. It's just a matter of they did it earlier. They have more documentation on all their sites. In our context, we need to encourage more of our population to embrace and also respect our heritage and to do the documentation. That is, I think that's the most fundamental part. So the documentation is the most important thing. It's not about gaining the recognition alone, but to have the what we call as the documentation, the baseline information must be there, must be recorded, because our region is very rich in history, very diverse in terms of our population, and culturally we are so diverse as well. So that is something is very unique in Southeast Asia context. But when you look into the context of currently the issue of climate change, we cannot run away. I mean, I remember when I was sitting in one of the session with the Ministry of Water before this. During that time, it was called CASA. They were saying that you have 2 wars in the world right now: the physical war and also the war of climate change. So this is something which we have to really look into it, especially considering our population. So, for example, the direct impact of climate change is, as a region, we are very much a maritime nation. Close to all our 11 nations except for Laos, which is a landlocked country, we are actually facing the sea, and we are very much prone to anything that is happening on the sea level rise. That is one. Then you got the issue.
You need to go to the display setting.
What happened?
You click there and then click on the duplicate slideshow.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Audio.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Now
It's
it's there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that is the issue of the climate change. You can see from the example, it can be either flood, not to forget drought. The moment we have a big flood, a long flood, we will also have drought season as well. That's how they balance up on the human on the natural factor. The moment that you have a very heavy rainfall, extreme rainfall in one particular period of time, a very short period of time, it will extended the drought season as well. So that is something which is we will talk about it, the impact from the experience of Angkor Wat. Okay, water scarcity is very common. Coastal erosion, we have plenty in our country nowadays. Degrading water quality, of course. Now to have water is almost like a very a special luxury item nowadays to have clean water to be able to drink. Salinity intrusion, that is something which the sea level rise will also increase the risk of salinity intrusion into the land and also into our farming area. So this is what happening now. We have places like Hoi An in Vietnam, which is very prone to the typhoon and also the increase of flash flooding. You can see also Bangkok, which is something which is very common nowadays, unfortunately. In Jakarta, for example, they have, in the sense that even their city is sinking right now, which is why, and the reason why they decided to feel that maybe changing their capital to new place by the name of Nusantara in Kalimantan is another option for them. So these all the issues that are related to the water in particular. And Malaysia, in the context of our country, I would say almost more than half of our state is actually derived from the river. Either we like it or not, either Perak comes from the Sungai Perak, the Sungai Selangor, Sungai Johor, Sungai Kedah. I think almost close to all our Malay states actually comes or derive from the name of the river, except for Sabah maybe, and Negeri Sembilan, because Negeri Sembilan is more based on the hinterland. But most of the state will start off from the name of the river that is named after it. So that is how we are so interconnected with the river element or the water element within. And even the name of representing country in the context of Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, for example, is Tanah Air, which means that the land and water. So the water is very, very strong in terms of the connection and relationship with the population within our region. And you can see from our own site in UNESCO World Heritage Site, our culture site by the name of Historic City of the Straits of Malacca. The name Straits of Malacca appear. It shows the symbiosis relationship between the city with the sea. And Penang and Malacca is the best example on showcasing the element of the trade culture among the population of these particular cities. But again, they are also not prone and not saved by all these either natural disaster or maybe a man-made induced disaster. So in the form, you can see from Malacca, KL recently having quite a lot of flash flood ever since, 5-6 years ago, getting heavier and heavier and getting worse and worse. Unfortunately, that is something which is the government itself is trying so hard to resolve this problem. But until today, you cannot fight all this purely based on engineering or structure basis. So that is the challenge. This is Pantai Sabah, the site where the first landing site of the Japanese during the first occupation in Malaya is also lost because of the erosion that happened along the coastal area of Kelantan. That is something that we are losing, but this is something that we can also mitigate, that it can also reduce the risk factor by contributing with a lot of things, and especially to have what I call as integrated management plan. This is very crucial because nowadays, last time, everything that we come is always based on silo. And in the context of Malaysia and overall, I think integrated management plan is the only way for us to be able to manage all these problems or issues. We cannot solve the problem, but we definitely can reduce or manage the problem. I think that's the key part. It's not us to be the God to solve the problem, but it's for us to be responsible and how to manage the problem or reduce the risk. I think that's good enough for us to be able to sustain our livelihood and to sustain the cities as well. And this is the story of Angkor Wat. I think Angkor Wat is a very unique story when it's a true wonder of the medieval world. And Angkor was actually the showcase of the Khmer Empire, which is now Cambodia, constructed about 1,000 square kilometer over 100 years. This was a large city that home about 1 million people in the hinterland. It's not along the coastal, but it's actually in the hinterland. It's further away, but it was connected to the river Mekong. So this is something which is a feat of engineering. It's a wonderful marvel of the wonder of the world itself. Because how are you able to build out a sophisticated city with a very sophisticated engineering mechanism that allows the water to come in? Because something which is very unique about it is they also constructed 2 big pools side by side. And this was actually based on the idea of to prevent overflooding from the monsoon season, for the monsoon flooding. They were calculated basically to fulfill and to store enough water during the monsoon flood. So all the residual or the overflow, the overtop from the river, from the monsoon flooding, will enter into this what they call as barai. So we had the western barai and also eastern barai. So it was calculated. It was not purely just built out just like that, but it was basically done properly with a proper calculation. So this one enabled the water to be irrigated for water irrigation during the drought season. So that was the masterstroke about the civilization of Angkor, because they are able to manage their water. They believe this is one of the reasons why Angkor was so successful during that time. And that is something which is we can always learn from the past. And this is something which is until today is still a marvel, even for me, as somebody that has been involved in water management for quite a while. We found out how is it possible for them to know how the calculation, everything. And that is how the heritage come into the picture. The connection with the cosmology, the relationship with the natural element, with the weather, with the climate, everything whatnot. Then that is how they are able to do all this calculation. And until today is still very much a wonderful and majestic engineering marvel indeed. But they found out that maybe climate change is an issue why Angkor Wat was being left behind, was being abandoned. Angkor Wat was never left because of the war. It was been abandoned because of there was the issue of the climate, and the climate change was the reason. The drought season, the worst drought season that in middle 30th century was one of the key reason why at the end of the day the people just left abandon the place, because there's not enough water for them to irrigate their farming, to do any farming whatsoever. It's either very extreme drought, I mentioned just now. It's either extreme drought, it can be very long, and a very short period of flood season, but very heavy. So that is how it's very difficult for them to sustain, because the calculation was based on the season. So they know how to accommodate the water based on the season that they calculated throughout the years. But in this case, in this particular period of time, they were saying that the calculation was a little bit more than normal, which is why the barai cannot accommodate the water, or they don't have enough water. That is why one of the reason why Angkor Wat was being abandoned. Okay, it was not because of war whatsoever. It was abandoned. It's totally different to a lot of places where they were left behind due to war or whatsoever, is being conquered or whatsoever. All right. Another system that I think is worth for us to highlight today is actually the Subak irrigation system in Bali. Subak is a system, is a very philosophical system, the ancient irrigated agriculture practice of the Bali island. It's a traditional irrigation system that is a combination of a network of canals, dams, and tunnels that was basically based on the community. That is something which is we always feel that it's all based on the equipment or mechanism, but it's actually in the particular on the Subak system is based on the community of the Bali, how they understand about the philosophical part of the Subak itself. And you can see from the profile itself, they're covering about more than 2,000 hectares, and they have, divided based on district. They have their head of state, the head of the family, head of committee that will instruct their underlings to do all the work that has been decided. It's been agreeable. So this is a system that is not just basically on the engineering part, but also on the social part as well. So that is the key part of the mechanism, how this particular Subak system can work in the Bali. So this is something which is a lot of people might miss out altogether, because we always feel that in managing all this sort of thing is purely on mechanical. But no, it must also include the social part, the cultural part. And the idea of making in as part of a culture thing is to allow the knowledge to be transferred much more easier. Because last time it's very difficult for us to have a syllabus. So having stories, having sounds, or having songs or whatever, allow the next generation to learn as well. So this is the how we come up with all these folklore songs whatever. It actually is teaching the new generation how to apply the mechanism on the ground. That is something which is we are still learning, we really learning, and we hope to document it as well. All right. And again, Bali is also having this problem as well. Climate change plays a big role in that part. Water resources is been they are having a lot because they're an island. Short-term droughts is also having problem, and the soil suitability and decline of all this weather brings havoc in all their farming system. And on top of that is also over tourism, because Bali is known as a heaven for tourism. The use of the water for tourism purposes also give a lot of impact towards the water resource in Bali as well. But when we go about these two sites, I would also like to share a bit on the story of Kuala Lumpur itself. Kuala Lumpur is a small town located on the northeast of Selangor. It's bordering between the state of Perak and also Pahang. And it's a very unique town because, as mentioned just now by TPR Ishak, Kuala Lumpur Baru was actually the first planned town in Malaya, in British Malaya. So it was inspired by the design of the concept of the philosophy of Garden City by Ebenezer Howard. So, but before that, there was another town by the name of Kuala Lumpur. The precedent of Kuala Lumpur Baru was Kuala Lumpur, because the name Kuala Lumpur Baru is Baru, means that's the new Kuala Lumpur. So there was an older Kuala Lumpur which is located a little bit south, and it was abandoned. And it was abandoned because of a certain reason. Okay, first and foremost, we need to understand why Kuala Lumpur was so significant. Kuala Lumpur is known as a mining district. So the area of Kuala Lumpur is very well known for their tin mining. And it was so successful that at a certain point of time, it was the fourth or third most successful town in Selangor during that time. It was, I mean, we can call it as the tin man rush at a certain point of time, because it was so busy. There were so many people coming over to this particular district in order for them to be able to chase for what they call as the tin man rush. So that thing coupled with unregulated mining activities make it very, very prone to flooding as well, because when it was designed, it was never put into consideration the environmental impact. What happened was, when they do the mining, they were doing open cast. They were doing a lot of on the top of the river, and they will keep on putting up a lot of other small ponds. And apparently, when you are not regulating all these things, you are actually killing off. You are putting up you are blocking up the water on the top, on the upstream. So gradually, there was a story that the dam actually was broken. This was in 1883. The first dam was broken. That dam was the original dam that was built by the Malay and together with the Orang Asli. But gradually, throughout the years from 1883 until 1920s, there were a lot of big flooding events that was occurring throughout the years, about 40 years along the line. But they were never relocated until 1926, 1921 precisely, where at the end of the day, the state government decided, okay, there's no point for us to maintain. It's better for us. We just have to move out. So if you can see from the records from the archive, there's a lot of settlement, sedimentation because of the intensive mining. And at last, in 1921, the government state just said there's no longer safe to occupy, and we have to move out. So they moved their administrative center from the original Kuala Lumpur, as what you know now is Ampang Pecah, to Rasa, and then later on, in the same time, they were developing what we call now as Kuala Lumpur Baru. So there was a record in the archive that mentioning about this. This was the Kuala Lumpur before 1925. So you can still see the record of the original Kuala Lumpur town, together with the dam. There was also a dam. There was already surveyed. The British already did everything on the town. They have all the facilities that you can imagine. They have the mosque, they have the district office, they have the hospital. In fact, they are still there. But if you are lucky, you might be able to see it. But it's hidden within the bushes and underwater. So that is part of the mystery about Kuala Lumpur during that time. So you can see from the picture here, the location of the original Kuala Lumpur town together with the dam at the back. So now we know as a Darul Quran and also what you call as the MRSM Kuala Lumpur. So that was part of the places which is the original seat of the Kuala Lumpur town. This was if you want to have a little bit more understanding about some of the research article. This is quite a good article about the Great Flood of 1926, environmental change and poor disaster management in Bismarck. I think this one of the earliest record that have a comprehensive write up about all the events about the disaster about the flooding in 1926, all within the peninsula. So they mentioned about what happened in Kuala Lumpur, what happened in Kuala Lumpur as well, what happened in Kota Baru. So all this thing was happening during that time. I'm not so sure whether is it true or not, the 100 years thing will come about. But in flood management, they will always talk about the 100 years. And 1926, I mean, we call about 100 years. Next year will be 2026. So not to throw away anything whatsoever, but there's something we need to think about it anyway. So 1921, yes, it occurs back in 2021. In Kuala Lumpur was having one of worst flooding was in 2021 as well. So it was a 100 years gap. So yeah, I mean, not saying that it's going to be happening, but it's just good for us to be prepared and ready about it. That's about it. Okay. Then you can see the location of Kuala Lumpur. The original Kuala Lumpur is actually on the down south. It's about close to 3 kilometers away from the original Kuala Lumpur to the current Kuala Lumpur town, which is actually on the slope of the hill. So it's very, very far away from the flood risk. So until today, Kuala Lumpur Baru is still intact. And for some people, they keep on asking in the current flooding system, they always relocate a few houses. But I always believe that it's very crucial for us to relocate the whole town, because that is the only way for us to sustain the town. Because to relocate some of the elements or components within the town, you are killing off the town as well. So in this case, when Kuala Lumpur was abandoned, they moved all together. They don't move just piecemeal. They don't move just a few people. No, everybody moved to Kuala Lumpur Baru. So that's how Kuala Lumpur Baru until today is still sustaining as a town. Even though I would say it's surviving town lah, but it still retain the same charm, still retain the same beauty of the past, which is, I think, something that we can learn, how these 100 years of design can still be appreciated until today. All right. Again, I mentioned just now how important for us as the practitioner to look into integrated management of any of our heritage site, or maybe the whole site, if not just heritage site, but the whole site, any town whatsoever. Especially on water management, integrated water management is very crucial. And we cannot run away from the fact that water is very near to any of our cities. So either we are a riverine community, either a coastal community, either we like it or not, we are very, very susceptible to all this sort of disaster. So yes, we have our local plan. Yes, we do have our management plan for our heritage site, but maybe we need to have a clear idea on our disaster risk management plan as well. So that is something which is I would like to encourage to any other cities or any other places to maybe apply and adopt and maybe prepare. If you don't want it to make it, at least you have something in mind. You have something on the pipeline to allow for you to at least predict a forecast and prepare. I think the most important thing in the disaster cycle is to have the preparedness and mitigation. We don't wait until the moment that you have to respond and also wait until the recovery part. So I always love to end anything with a certain tidbits, I would say. For culture and for our way of life, you can wipe out a generation of people. You can burn their homes to the ground and somehow they will still come back. But if you destroy their achievement and their history, then it's like they never existed. That's the key part. It's just like an ash floating around. So that was from the story, from the film of The Monuments Man, Matt Damon, and also George Clooney, one of my favorite film all time. So thank you very much. I pass to you back, Puan Raya.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tuan Pelana Afzal, for the interesting and thought-provoking presentations. Uh, now we will open the floor for questions. If you have any, you can type your questions, or you may raise your hand to ask both of our speakers direct. Any question from the participants? If you don't have, then I have kind of like a questions to both of you. You have?
I got a question about that Kuala Lumpur, about the mitigation plan. So let's say the flooding, as mentioned, maybe it might be having a big proper mitigation plan for that, or we are just waiting for the disaster to come.
Hello.
Right. Hello. Can you listen?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I just disconnected Bluetooth device. Okay, just for the Kuala Lumpur Baru part, it is mentioned that more probably it might have a big flood like in 2026. So mitigation plans is being done, or just in the talk of sense only it's going to happen? Because let's say it's happened any big flood at that that Kuala Lumpur Baru, I think it will be a very big much disaster.
Can I maybe answer that very quickly? Okay, in terms of Kuala Lumpur, to be honest, I would not say you are for sure safe, but the Selangor Dam actually reduce that risk very, very much. So the construction of the dam itself is actually a mitigation part as well. For your info, from the river of Klang, Sungai Kelang, the original design to reduce the flood was actually to have not just two dams. It was supposed to have three dams. So you have the Klang Gate Dam, you have the Batu Dam. They should have another dam, which is originally now they know as the University of Islam Antarabangsa. That was the original design that was come up with the consultant in 1971. That was the big flood where we have the emergency. So for Kuala Lumpur, touch wood, touch wood, I really hope that there's nothing happen, because of when you have that dam, it's actually practically you are already safeguarding the whole place of that area. So I'm just saying that it's not about whether it's going to happen in 2026 or not. That is a very God-like way of prediction. But I'm just saying, in water management, we always talk about the 100 years, the ARI 100 years and 200 years, 50 years. So we always go based on that. So it's good for us to know, it's good for us to prepare, and it's good for us to be able to understand the basic information in order for us to have all this sort of preparation. So in the event God send, touch wood again, doesn't happen, we know how to do. So we don't want what happened in tsunami occurs to because of lack of knowledge and lack of information. That's all. Okay. Thank you very much for the question. This is a very good question, actually.
Here, Melvin John asking about what about Kuching City? Kuching City.
Now everybody is asking us. That's a very tough question to answer, to be honest. To be honest, this is something which is, we have to look on the data. That's the only thing that, I'm not an expert from all the places that we are talking about, but I can for sure talk about Sungai Kelang. I can for sure talk a bit of Sungai Selangor, that's all. But Kuching, in that sense, any city which is located along the river, you are always have the risk. It's either low, medium, or high. That's the thing that we have to. And within the context of risk management, there's another option that sometimes we totally ignore it. We are not solving the risk altogether. We are not to eliminate the issue whatsoever, to eliminate the risk. What we are actually managing the risk. So for example, in flooding, we are in the idea of maybe to live with flood, to live with the water, allow the water to come about, but not that high. It's enough for us to move around. That's all. You can still have your own nasi lemak. You can still go to your kopitiam, but without your shoes. I think that is something which is something which is very, very crucial for us to understand. So yeah, this in heritage site, in places like in Kuching is a living town. So I believe all the budget must be already be allocated, because this done strategically on the federal side. So I doubt they don't know about it. But I believe they will already come up with the at least mitigation, not solution. I'm not saying that you can solve the flood problem altogether. No. So it's not possible for you to solve the problem altogether. Okay. Encik Syah.
Okay. In
Okay,
Kelantan,
I just want to add on the flooding, the flood mitigation. Okay, this 100-year event is the normal approach by engineers to design mitigation. So we predict that the flood will be up to a certain level if the big flood comes, that usually come every 100 years. Okay, but it is also subject to other factors. What happened, how much we change the catchment area, or how much forest we have removed upstream and all that, or even around the cities, where how much runoff, is going into the river. So all this, have to be taken into account. But if the weather is worse than, what we predicted, we don't have a choice. The flood will happen. But if it is within the 100-year event prediction, we are safe. So we cannot say that we will be safe forever. But the concept of this garden city or the greening of the city is one of the ways where we can help to mitigate. That means we reduce the runoff going into the river and delaying the water reaching the river, and having all sorts of blue-green infrastructure, or having, green areas which will soak up the water. The sponge city concept is to hold the water so that not all the water will just rush down to the river at the same time. That will help to mitigate, how high the flood water will rise. So otherwise, nothing much we can do if, the weather decided that it's going to give something which is like a 200-year event or 500-year event. Then we just need to be prepared on how to save ourselves from the flood.
okay, and thank you, Chesa and also Afza. There is two questions from our president. There was flooding in Nia World Heritage Site earlier this year. Do you know how Nia is dealing with this?
This is the question that we're going to answer the moment we invite Mr. Sherman, I think, because he just presented a paper about this matter, I think last 2 weeks ago in Sawalunto. So maybe we can have a detail more next year in our ICOMOS General Assembly. So for anybody who wants to know more about this thing, please come over to Kuching and maybe listen to the General Assembly, and we have more teams that we can talk about it much more in detail later on. And you can also ask around, because we have more, about 2,000 experts as well. So it's also a promotion to ICOMOS for the next year as well, yeah.
But you can give like kind of preview.
At the moment that I haven't read yet the paper yet. I'm not so sure whether Encik Faisal knows about this paper yet. But at the moment, Nia is quite complicated because of the last time there was a quarry behind it, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be wrong altogether. And then because the limestone also, they also have the water element that enter the cave where all the paintings is around. So I'm not so sure what is the current aspect or method they are using it. But in the normal terms, if the flooding or river, normally they will fall under the purview of the JPS, the Department of Irrigation and Drainage. Normally, they will always have what we call as IRBM, Integrated River Basin Management Plan. They will also have what they call as Rancangan Tempatan Banjir, RTB, flood mitigation plan, which is a holistic plan where they come up with all the solution, either in the sense of being a ban, or maybe a water gate, a flood barrier, whatsoever. But for Nia, specifically, it's very unique because there's a lot of caves inside, and it's within a nature reserve as well. So that is something which is I personally I cannot answer that question yet. But maybe once I manage to get the paper from GMS, for example, if they can share about it later on, that would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Afza. So now we got the question from Puan Rose Afrina. In terms of safeguarding Old Town with cultural heritage asset and with increasing urbanization where green areas are being converted into new developments, what plans are currently in place to prepare, and in your view, what further actions should be considered?
Syed, you want to answer?
Okay. For protecting urban areas, I think the key agency that prepare all these plans is our drainage irrigation department. Yeah. And on the heritage side, what we feel should also happen is they must also provide more allocation for some heritage professionals to be part of the team when preparing the flood mitigation plan, to provide input to the engineers on the heritage assets that we need to protect. So most of the towns and cities that are facing serious flood problems, I think plans have been prepared and are being upgraded. So, for example, you see that Malacca, the heritage core area, the city itself, has not suffered serious flooding for many years. The core areas, because of the flood mitigation program, and even now JPS is also upgrading the flood mitigation program because it protects initially the old town, the Malacca city, and especially the heritage areas, but the other areas around it, the upstream, still have problems with some flooding. So now they are upgrading the protection to make it better. Yeah. So same as Kuala Lumpur, we have all this. And I think I will just continue with somebody asked about the River of Life project. Okay. River of Life project, in my personal opinion, initially it has a lot of elements to mitigate flood, but unfortunately, I think some of the measures that were introduced, were actually what they were. One of the measures they tried to do is to regulate the water level in Sungai Klang and Sungai Gombak, to enable the water taxis to be service to be provided. But unfortunately, the rubber dams that were designed, it seems to have collapsed, and none of them survived. The hydrological, what do you call it, impact, from our rivers, because I think the engineers or the consultant that were engaged to come up with this did not fully grasp the difference between the rivers in Malaysia and the rivers, in other parts of the world, in a more advanced country. Because here we have 1 hour of heavy rain, Sungai Klang level will rise almost 10 feet in the city center. So that's just giving, I think the water goes higher actually sometimes. So there's the different dynamics. You need the local engineers to come out with that. But we have already plans, the old plan that Afzal mentioned initially, Batu Dam, is one of the measures. The other one is the smart tunnel to divert the water. There was supposed to be another canal, actually not tunnel, that will divert water from between Sungai Klang and Sungai Gombak, around Batu Cave area. That was planned long ago, but it took so long to be implemented. The canal was not completed, within say 5-year or 10-year period. Then, changes happened to the land use, where some parts of the area designated for this canal, for where water will be used to divert has been developed into housing estates, and so it creates a lot of problem for JPS. Otherwise, we would have a very good system where if there were too much water in Sungai Kelang, we can divert it towards Sungai Gombak and to the former mining land. You have a huge former mining pool in Kampung Batu area. I've seen that pool. You can put one jumbo jet in it, and it still have a lot of space there. So imagine the amount of water that can be channeled to this as a retention pond. But things did not happen the way that JPS wanted. A lot of the former mining ponds that were earmarked as retention pond has been filled up during the 90s and to around the turn of the century to be developed into mostly residential and commercial projects. So we lost some of the opportunities. But now I think we've stopped allowing that. And well, there are actions taken. The only thing is how effective they have been. That's the other question. Because we can only do a protection. We can design it, as I said earlier, up to what extent. So currently we are going, the maximum is up to 100-year event. That's the maximum we'll go. To go beyond that, it will be a lot more expensive. So we'll need a bigger budget to do that.
Thank you, TPR Ishak. We have our last questions, I think, from Puan Vidat. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Throughout both sessions, the panels highlight issues such as nature-based solutions, urban wilderness, climate change, drought and flooding. I would like to ask, which city in Malaysia have been strategically planned or designed to serve as the best model of flood mitigation, particularly in the lowland regions and area near to the water sources such as river and coastal zone? Thank you. Okay.
Okay. You're talking about planned city. I think what we have is most of our cities are planned, and it grows partly organically, but partly developer driven because it start to grow. But the one city that comes to mind that you can see a lot of examples where all these measures have been put in is Putrajaya, because Putrajaya was designed from a blank blank piece of paper, and then you can put everything in there. And you see the nice lake of Putrajaya. Well, before Putrajaya was created, there was not much water, just a tiny streams that might flow through. It was an oil palm, former oil palm or rubber estates. And they created, the wetlands further up next to UPM area. I mean, you come out from UPM, the highway.
Highway.
Yeah. And then, that's where the wetlands system was placed to filter waters that are coming down from the north. It goes through the wetland and into the lake in Putrajaya. So it looks very clean and very beautiful, but it is also function as flood mitigation because they can design, because the city was designed with a platform level that was determined, to take into account flood level. If you see the core island, the central part where you see the big boulevard where most of the government departments are, was created. It was a field area. It's not naturally that high for most of it. A lot of the area were actually filled up to raise the platform level. So you find that Putrajaya has so far been safe from any flash flooding. But for other cities, it's more difficult because it's they are all old towns that grows organically, and then it was planned development, but being add on here and there all over the place. So and nobody actually think about the flood potential of, or the impact from the development of flooding. As you see, Taman Sri Muda problem, it was designed, the barrage was designed to protect Taman Sri Muda from flooding when, that was 30 years ago when they built that residential area. But over the years, new residential area came up around it, and so the barrage has not been designed to cover all the other new developments that contribute to the runoff. That's why we have problems there. So these are the things that JPS will always look into, and finding ways on how to mitigate. So by upgrading their flood mitigation plan, and also, providing a long-term strategy in their river basin management plan.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can conclude the session for today. But actually, I have one last question for both of you as planners, because I see that because I'm not a planner, so I don't know whether to what extent is actually the Planning Act in Malaysia Town and Country Planning Act can address the challenge of this climate change, and then does the current Planning Act provide sufficient legal framework for this climate responsive urban planning? I mean that just like your kind of like phone
Yeah,
application
if you may, I answer the question first before, because Isha is much more senior than me, definitely. He knows better a lot of things. But in the context of the climate change, whatsoever, I mean, to be honest with you, Malaysia, we have so many regulations. Sometimes to the extent we are over-regulate. Sometimes because too many regulations confuse people. They makes people confuse how to manage the place, because we are working in silo. I think that's the key part. I always mentioning just now, integration. Keyword is cooperation. We have to work together. We have to cooperate, because every aspect comes from a different angle, from different expertise. So I cannot answer from the element of engineering. Somebody cannot answer me in the form of demographic, for example. So this particular how we call it, integrated management plan is very crucial. We are trying to apply it. There's another part that we also need to understand is actually the behavior of the human being towards the elements, how you react. For example, when we talk about flash flood, it's not purely because of the rainfall extreme alone, but also because of our attitude towards the drain, when we throw away the rubbish and everything whatnot. I always give a lot of example of the cases of the emergency, during the emergency time, during Darurat. Why it was so successful? It was because it was working together. The science, the technical, and also the behavior, the attitude. They created the home guard. They created all these mechanisms to change the mentality of the people. You put the new village, you put in, so you feel very secure. You know that it's doing, you get punished or whatever. So there's a social element on it that actually affect your behavior. Our current COVID-19, for example, the SOP, standard operating procedure, the new norm, whatever. Once you are going out without wearing the mask, everybody is looking at you as if you are doing a very heavy mistake. You are supposed, I mean, that's something which is on the human habit, is something that we need to address. And Singapore did it by the name of fine city, the fine system, because they know culturally you have the habit to speed, you have the habit to throw away the rubbish within the drain, is a cultural thing. So that is something how you want to, that's how sometimes it's not nice to see fine system, but that's the only thing that I think can make it finer. But in terms of regulation, Town and Country Planning Act must be read together with a lot of other act. You need to read with Local Government Act, that's obstruction of water. There's an Irrigation Area Act, there's a Drainage Work Act, there's so many acts, the Land Code, whatever, until the stage that you are fed up to read all these acts, because there's so many acts. To be honest, we are overly regulated. Sometimes we just need a very specific and very integrated way of understanding everything. So you will make things easier for us. Macam last time, remember rancangan buku hijau and rancangan buku merah? It's a very clear affirmative action. Something similar to that. That will do wonders. I think that's from my perspective.
Thank you, Tuan Planner.
Okay. So one thing is, under the Town Country Planning Act, there are a lot of elements that provide for all the technical agencies dealing with planning, dealing with all other things that involve creating a town. And I think the development plan system with the local plan and structure plans is a good channel to bring together all these people to sit and, to discuss and plan things, together so that we know what's happening here. So, and I think it has worked in some way. And previously, the technical agencies were not very interested, in the local plans, maybe 20 years ago. We have meetings discussing the proposal and local plans, and it's very difficult to get them to send representative. But now I think everybody see that it is where they all can come together and put in their ideas and push the ideas. Basically, because the local plan is a plan that is gazetted, then it becomes it's like a law, which we have to follow. Unfortunately, in practice, we have a lot of things like political intervention, which people will come in and change when people with influence, even developers with influence, can request for the plan to be changed. Sometimes it's just like a couple of months after the plan is gazetted, a developer comes in, and with support from some MPs, or influential people, force the plan to be changed, and it actually disrupt the whole strategy that was planned. Because the other thing I see is because we don't have actually a single agency or ministry, and comparing it to the UK, where planning, land use planning, environment, environmental protection, and even heritage all sits under one minister and one ministry. So it becomes very powerful at controlling how development takes place. And then the local authority are also powerful. And they have also independent, they call it ombudsman, or people, who like planning inspectors, they call it. Whenever there is even proposal by the local authority can be rejected if it doesn't meet the set principle or the strategies in the plan. But we're still a long way from that. That's why we have a lot of problems. We make all good plans, and but we just have to try harder and improve things in the future.
All right, thank you for both of you again, for our speakers, Town Planner Isha Arifin and also Town Planner Afzal Zari, for the inspiring presentations. So what we have learned today is that heritage, cities and water are actually deeply connected. From Town Planner Isha, we saw that how garden city concept can be reimagined through rewilding and biodiversities. And from Town Planner Afzal, we learned how water hazard challenge heritage cities and call for the adaptive and collaborative strategies. So this message is very clear. For our heritage to survive, it must also evolve and also remain resilient. So before we close the sessions, I'd like to share a quick update on our ICOMOS Malaysia. For those who are not for those who are not yet our members of ICOMOS Malaysia, we are welcome you to register and join our community. You can visit our website, ICOMOS Malaysia website, and then you can scan on the QR code and register for the membership form. And also, we also would like to welcome any one of you to share with us a story or a project relates to the heritage for our future sessions. You can call us also at ICOMOS Malaysia, and we truly welcome every one of you. So, and finally, okay, there is also a feedback form for you to give an input. It's also valuable for us to improve our session in near future. And finally, for a memento for these sessions, we would like to take up group photos. We would like for all of you to turn on your camera. All of you already taken.
Okay, open camera.
Cik Rosli
Hmm.
ada.
Okay,
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Expand. Okay, one more time. Wait. 1, 2, 3. Expand.
And also we will share our recorded sessions at our YouTube, ICOMOS Malaysia YouTube. And again, thank you for both of our speakers and all of you. I also actually want to thank to Intan, as always, a backbone for Sembrani 2.0 for helping us. And see you all at our next Heritage Around Earth, Sembrani 2.0 sessions on the 29th of October, Wednesday, same time, same modes also in the Zooms. Okay, see you. Thank you. Bye-bye.